Hey guys, today I'm going to give an outline of the state of Eldar during the official launch week of the game, including version 1.0.0 and its hotfixes. I'll also be making some observations on the game's overall development and trying to dispel some of the misunderstandings that many players seem to have about Eldar as a faction. So if you're interested in playing Eldar or want to know how they differ from the other factions, then hopefully this video will be helpful. Recently, the majority of the player base has decided that it's okay to direct massive amounts of salt and trash talking at Eldar, regardless of whether they win or lose a game. The official forums have also become rife with this kind of behaviour, which truly saddens me, because one of the things that attracted me to this game in the first place was how many friends I have made regardless of faction choice. In response to this, I'm going to address some common misconceptions that many players seem to have regarding Eldar. Misconception number 1. Fire dragons are an unfair advantage specific to Eldar. This is not true because Loyalists and Chaos can both unlock melter guns for their tacticals, which are functionally identical to fusion guns and cost 10,000 requisition, which took me just over 2 games to earn on my Loyalist character this week. Misconception number 2. Only Eldar and Chaos have ranged healing and rezzing. This is one that I find particularly confusing because all factions have AoE healing, and Eldar were not only the last faction to be given AoE healing, but they actually have to spend more advancement points than any other faction to get theirs. The total amount of advancement points required for each faction to unlock AoE healing is 104 for Eldar, 53 for Orcs, 98 for Loyalists, and Chaos have 2 AoE heals which cost 108 each, and 1 that costs 15. As a side note, the Orc healing grenades are large enough to be killed by melee attacks when they are on the floor, and Loyalists are not. Also, neither can be destroyed by melter damage, which means that if you take a fusion pistol on a melee class, you will not be able to destroy Loyalist healing grenades unless they are stuck to terrain at melee height. Misconception number 3. Many people think that Eldar are as durable as the other factions. This is partially true. The Reapers, Dragons and Scorpions have the same base stats as all the classes for the Loyalists and Chaos. This is because, in the lore, these classes wear heavy aspect armour instead of the regular aspect armour. The other Eldar classes that wear regular aspect armour have 80 toughness instead of the 100 toughness that the heavy aspect armour grants. Additionally, all of the Orcs classes have 250 base health compared to the 200 that all the other factions have. It is also worth noting that the other factions can unlock higher cost equipment for the War Gear 1 slot. These are called Halos for Loyalists, Sigils for Chaos, and Gobs for Orcs. All of these items cost more loadout points than any of the Eldar options, but in return they give higher stats. I think the main factors that are contributing to the misconception that Eldar are too tanky are 1. That they are faster and have smaller hitboxes, which does not actually mean they are tankier, it just means you need to have good aim, and 2. The fact that the Warlock's Embolden spell is currently stacking when it should not be, which means when multiple Warlocks are using Embolden together, this can make Eldar tankier than they should be. Thankfully, the devs have already said that this is high on their list of things to fix, so with a little patience this will be resolved. Additionally, it seems to be often the case that players are complaining about Eldar being too tanky because they're either neglecting to equip their own rank 3 or 5 armour pieces, or forgetting to take the armour pieces into consideration when judging time to kill. Misconception number 4. The Eldar have yet to be nerfed, which is not accurate at all because historically, when Eldar gets something that is brokenly overpowered, it has been nerfed way faster than the other factions have been. Also, within a week of release, there have been 2 hotfixes with multiple nerfs to the Reapers and Hawks, which have made a huge difference, and the Warlock has had 1 nerf and has more fixes on the way. Also, it is noteworthy that Eldar are the only faction to have received nerfs since launch, despite all the other factions having their own elements that are clearly too strong. Misconception number 5. The Eldar's melee specialists are too strong. This is inaccurate because in actual fact, a great deal of Eldar players do not even bother to use Banshees and Scorpions due to the Warlocks currently being our best melee fighters, and this is primarily due to the aforementioned problem with Embolden. Also, a lot of players complain that the Eldar melee weapons hit too hard, and the only reason I can come up with for this is the melee damage mods. However, these mods are actually available to all factions, and personally I think they should be removed from the game or reworked, because right now any weapon that has them becomes way more damaging than it should be. Misconception number 6. The Eldar only win because Eldar OP. Whilst in recent updates to the game, the Eldar were significantly buffed, and in some cases were buffed too much, many of these buffs have already been repealed. I've played as all factions, and in fact just this week I played many solo games on my Loyalist character against Eldar teams that also did not have pre-mades on their side. Despite this, the Eldar teams I played against displayed a better understanding of the game and a higher level of team play, which were the main reasons why the Loyalists were having difficulties against them. Also, the Loyalists seem prone to making multiple mistakes due to lack of discipline or game knowledge, such as leaving vehicles undefended, failing to understand the importance of capturing points to gain extra game time, and spending a great deal of time bitching about Eldar instead of concentrating on working together to win the game. This is an opinion that I share with plenty of players that main Loyalist, and I know this for a fact because barely a game went by where there was not someone complaining about objectively bad play from a majority of their Loyalist teammates. Misconception number 7. The best way to deal with the perceived Eldar OP situation is to dodge all games that you get against Eldar. In the long term, this will make things even worse because for a start, the devs need accurate statistics in order to balance the game properly, and they cannot get those if people Q-dodge. Even more importantly, if Eldar do get nerfed to pieces, as so many people are begging for, then after the hypothetical nerfs, the players that Q-dodged will be lacking in experience and knowledge of how to beat Eldar. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble guys, but I've been playing Eldar since the release, and back then they were clearly the weakest faction. Yet, despite this disadvantage, my clan still won significantly more games than we lost because we rose to the challenge and overcame obstacles via superior team play and playing our asses off instead of just sulking and complaining about the other factions. On the performance side of things, the maximum player counts have been reverted to their previous values, and this seems to have alleviated the frequency of the latency issues for much of the player base. Also, since the FPS cap has been lifted, my albeit very powerful gaming rig runs most of the maps at around 40 to 80 FPS, depending on how much is happening on the screen. However, Harkus in particular still performs very badly around the Bravo point, where my FPS is generally in the low 20s. The maximum rank has been increased to 6 to enable players to earn enough advancement points to unlock everything in the advancement trees. When it comes to loadouts, the general rule of thumb is to make sure that you equip the advanced armours alongside the heavy barrel, stabilising grip, melee damage and melee lifesteal attachments, all of which are unlocked from the requisition crates. They have now added a separate custom loadout slot that can only be used for revered classes, and since Warlocks are still the Eldar class with the most expensive loadout options and are currently the strongest class we have, I would highly recommend making them one of the first revered classes that you unlock. The major change to Scorpions since my last State of the Eldar video is that they have had reductions to their damage bonuses for backstabbing and attacking out of high levels of stealth. This makes them less likely to one-shot people, although this can still be done against targets that are wearing rank 3 armour if you power attack their back from high levels of stealth whilst you have the melee damage attachment on your chainsword. Both of the Avengers weapons are now viable. As many of us had hoped, the effective range of the single shuriken catapult has been increased, so it now outranges the twin-linked. Both guns are good without attachments, but they do benefit greatly from the use of the heavy barrel and stabilising grip attachments. Although if you use these with the twin-linked, you will not be able to afford them in combination with advanced armour alongside a healing crystal and fusion pistol, so you will need to remove one of these items. I personally still prefer the twin-linked because it is the most effective at close range, which is where I generally fight. The Fire Dragons are still very strong for anti-vehicle, especially when used in combination with Eldar transports as part of the Burning Wing strategy. With practice and close proximity, you can even get the odd infantry kill with them by using a combination of fusion gun and free-aimed knife attacks. At launch, the Reaper Launcher's Star Swarm missiles were buffed to do double their previous damage, which took them from being fairly bad to way too strong. They have since been nerfed back into the ground in a hotfix by reducing their damage, accuracy, projectile speed and AoE. They are awaiting a more sensible balance pass in the future. The Starshot missiles are still very good for anti-vehicle damage and can also be used as anti-infantry, but this is difficult to do consistently due to their small AoE and the requirement to fully charge them before firing, which means you can easily get caught out mid-charge. The Shuriken Cannon and its equivalents on other factions have thankfully had their anti-vehicle damage massively reduced, but are still good for anti-infantry. The Tempest Launcher is still way too unreliable to be used effectively, and is likely to get just as many, if not more of her teammates killed than the enemy. At launch, the Hawk's new weapon, which is an alternate version of the Hawk's Talon called the Hunter's Mark, was way too strong because the rate of fire and damage were higher than they should have been. It has since been hotfixed by having its damage reduced by about 30 and its rate of fire reduced from 400 to 200. This now makes it have the same effective range and damage per second as the standard Hawk's Talon by shooting at half the speed but for double the damage. It has also had its clip size increased from 10 to 15, although the maximum ammunition that you can carry for it still feels like it needs an increase. Overall, I like the feel of the Hunter's Mark after its nerf, but considering it is a drop from a 30,000 requisition crate and costs 100 more loadout points than the standard Hawk's Talon, I would recommend that most players use the Hawk's Talon and put the additional 100 loadout points to use somewhere else, like a melee damage mod for the ceremonial knife. In the recent hotfixes, the Las Blaster, Sun Rifle and Hawk's Talon have all had their damage decreased by 10%, so you need to be more careful how and when you engage people because straight up fights are now more difficult to win. Also, the Hawk's top flight speed is still too high, and I know plenty of Eldar, myself included, that think it should be reduced. Since my last State of the Eldar video, the Warlocks have been given their Emboldened skill, which as I already mentioned needs fixing due to it incorrectly stacking. In one of the recent hotfixes, the warp charge cost of casting the spell has been increased from 45 to 60, so if you want to be able to cast it twice without waiting for your warp charge to regen, you will need to equip the Mastercrafted Witchblade, which gives you 120 warp charge instead of the regular 100. The Banshees have finally been released and have launched in a pretty good state. Their light attack and sprint attacks are rather slow, but their power attacks are quick enough for you to often get away with relying on them for your damage. The Banshee Scream reduces your target's weapon strength by 1 tier, reduces their defense against melee damage, and suppresses them. Be aware that currently the Scream is bound to holding down the T key, which is the same key that you press for Battlecry, which is otherwise known as Taunt. And if you rebind the Battlecry command, the Banshee Scream activation will not work. I've gotten around this inconvenient keybind issue by remapping one of my mouse buttons to act as T, but I've been told that you can also get around this issue by altering one of the game's config files, and I've hyperlinked a guide on how to do this in the information section below. Thanks to the aforementioned and much needed nerf to the vehicle damage of the Heavy Bolter and its equivalents, the Shuriken cannons on the Wave Serpent are now awful at anti-vehicle damage. Due to the mobility of the Eldar tanks, they are still great transports and an integral part of the Burning Wing, which is still one of the most powerful strategies that the Eldar have. The Falcons are still basically useless for anything other than personal transport for ninja caps, or as a poor substitute for a Wave Serpent when running the Burning Wing. Like all other ordnance vehicles, the Warp Hunters are still very easily killed if they are spawned before the quad cannons have been destroyed, and even then they require their team to significantly harass the enemy's anti-vehicle weaponry in order to destroy the gates before they themselves are destroyed. If this is not done correctly, it can make winning fortress maps incredibly difficult. Overall, the Eldar are strong right now, but by no means unbeatable, and the best way to beat them is to learn how to make use of the powerful features at your faction's disposal and to use a high level of team play and coordination, which is most easily achieved by joining a good guild, which is something that I would recommend to anyone playing Eternal Crusade. Cheers for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and check out my Twitch channel. And as always, I'm just nipping to the loo, I'll be right back.